Hello, 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 and welcome to Entitled, where we talk to the entrepreneurs, practitioners, and thought leaders of the real estate industry. I'm Bernie Espinosa, along with my co-host, David Bellinger.
Hey, everyone.
Yay, hi. And and also welcome to our episode. And we are Entitled, and we call it that because David and I both work in the title industry, so we thought it'd be a fun little name for our show. Because the title industry
lot of
is
meaning to it.
very
lot
fun.
of meaning to it, yeah.
There's a lot of meaning to that. But super excited about our episode today. We have a superstar with us, so I'm super excited, and a superstar. But Tracy Royce, the Royce of Real Estate, is our guest today on our special episode. And one of the things that I think is super important about working in the real estate space, whether you're a real estate practitioner, a lender, whatever role you play in the real estate industry, is learning to monetize and really monetizing your business. And what better way if you're a real estate practitioner but to be an investor?
Right.
Right? You get to be part of it along with everybody else. And so today, Tracy with the Royce of Real Estate is going to tell us her story, how she's gone from investor, she's an entrepreneur. I mean, investor, contractor, rehabber, coach, and she does it with FIRE. And guess what FIRE means? It means financial independence, retire early.
Baby.
I love that.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
here. It's my
here.
honor to be here. I'm super excited to share.
Yeah. We got a chance to do an event with Tracy.
Yep.
Last year, I think it was. I mean, obviously it's evergreen, so last year could be whatever. But, but you know, you were so impactful and you had so much to share. And I feel like, you know how sometimes you have those speakers at events where you're like, they needed to give that person like 2 days, let alone 20 minutes. And I feel like that's the impact that you had. And so today, let's get to know you. Like, give us, you know, that fast track version as where you started and where you're at now, but really showcasing to us your investor platform. You know, I think a lot of it too is how do we dig in and get started with that? And what's next for Tracy? Let's talk about your coaching platform, but we really want to learn more about you and how you can help everybody in the real estate space see other ways in which they can monetize and earn and retire early.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the platform and being here with you guys. It's a gorgeous 110 day here in Phoenix.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. As I'm in a jacket, but
we love the
someone may
formality.
watch this in the winter, right?
No one knows it's January in 110.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
Wherever you're watching this from, let's
Right.
keep it hot. So with that, my background in a nutshell is essentially I used to work for investors. I got recruited to work for real estate investors, and I really enjoyed doing it and being back of house and making sure everything was neat and tidy and ready. But after a while, I felt like, when is it going to be that I can sort of capitalize on what these guys are doing, which is rentals, fix and flips, investing, short sales, foreclosures, and part of what I felt like was my main motivation was the friction that came from, well, they're not providing it to me and, you know, like helping me move up the ranks. And what I learned, and maybe those of you that are watching too have felt like, well, if my boss he keeps telling me or she keeps telling me that if I do this, then I'll get ahead, or if I do this, then I'll, you know,
Work on your sphere.
Yes, then I'll get a raise. And you guys really have to embrace the idea that like no one is going to invest in you more than you will. And I finally just reached a point where I said, enough is enough. I put in my notice. I phased out, no bad blood whatsoever. I love the time I spent back of house, but I decided it was time for me to actually do this for myself, and no one was going to hand that to me.
How long ago was that?
That was quite some time ago. So I started working behind the scenes, right before the market crashed.
Okay, 08-ish?
Yes, and then cut my teeth on everything distressed. The guys I worked for had rather large portfolios, so a lot of property management, which I apply to my business today. But really, you know, my evolution came from being, I was also a licensed agent to work for investors, but did everything that I did for investors for myself. And guys, the crazy thing about it is if you put the same amount of energy that you're working for someone else into yourself and you have that motivation behind you, like, I gotta make this happen, it is incredible when you take that leap of faith to see what happens. So since then, I have done fix and flips. I had no background in construction, so I learned construction. Became a landlord, ran my own business, did a ton of short sales, to move up into all this. Eventually became a licensed contractor, shared my story online, and flipped to FIRE, financial independence, retire early, by building a portfolio of assets. So by virtue of doing that, people asked, can you coach me? Can you mentor me? And I created Flip School, which is my coaching program now. But yeah, that's really my evolution in a nutshell. And it's my joy to continue to do this sort of work and be here.
Oh, I love it. And I think too, having that moment that clicked for you and recognizing that you wanted to do it for yourself and knowing what you wanted to do. I think two things happen for people in many situations in their lives where whether it's business or otherwise is like, I know this isn't where I want to be anymore, but then they don't know what they actually want to do. And so for you to have that transition of just diving in and committing, right? Commitment with definition of commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after the mood you set it in has left you, right? And for you to kind of have all that click through has driven you to where you're at today.
Well, I'm Italian.
So are
Okay.
you?
So
there's a little bit
Is there some mafia behind this?
There's
I'm just
not
kidding.
mafia, but there's a lot of motivation. But I love what
I
you
love it. I'm Italian.
That makes everything.
That probably
That explains it all.
lot.
But like Bernie said, to learning all the different stuff, you didn't just pick one of everything you just told us. You said, nope, I'm going to do all of it.
Yeah.
Like
Well-
you just said you didn't have any knowledge of construction.
Right.
And that was 12 years ago?
About, yes.
Yeah.
And
Well,
now
you
you're a
immersed
GC.
yourself. Yeah.
So
Right.
there's people that have been doing construction for 20 years
Right.
who are not G. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Right.
I'm going to dive in on all of it so I can control it. I can do it. I can teach it. I can coach
Yeah.
it. I can experience it.
Well, I want to be very clear to anyone listening not to get overwhelmed when you see other people's successes, right? Because we all start fumbling through what we don't know and feeling. And a big thing I want to go back to, like you said, that I had a hard time with is giving myself permission to actually do it. Yeah. Well, these guys are doing it, but they're so much smarter than me, or they have more money than me, or they know what I don't know. I mean, I knew no one when I came here to Phoenix, and I just felt like, can I do this? Well, it's not illegal. No one's stopping me. But we look around for permission to say, can I do this? And I think the number one permission that we need to give is to ourselves. I can do this, and I'll figure out a way. And maybe it's a baby step, just one baby step. And what is that next uncomfortable baby step that you have to continue to take?
Progress over perfection, right? I mean, the pursuit of perfection is noble, but why don't we just make some progress? Because that's pretty excellent, right? So I feel like that's what you did, and you also immersed yourself in it. Because I think a lot of people see things that they like other people doing and think, oh, I'm just going to jump right in it. But you were really immersed in it. And I think
heavily.
David and I talk a lot about that with our sales team, is like immerse yourself into the resources, into the practices, into engagement with other people. Immerse yourself in it so you can really get an organic takeaway as to what you want to do.
Heavily.
Yeah, but you decided to kind of dabble in everything.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure it was like, you
might
said
sound like
evolution
that.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, it might sound like that, but you have to understand, like, the investor community here, which I technically like grew up around, not like age-wise, but career-wise. All of us have multiple and different facets that we work in, but it's like an evolution from what you started here. So if you're, a fix and flipper, then that grows into different avenues as well. So I really want to encourage any agents or baby investors that are listening to like start with one thing and get really, really good at that and immerse yourself in that, because then that can stem off other opportunities. But you can't try to diversify into 6 things at once and try to be great at all of those. Just get great at one thing and do it really, really, really well.
Well, kind of lead into then how to get started. What's that one little thing? What does someone need if they are a real estate agent? They're like, you know what, I should probably get involved in some investing. Like, what would be the first step? Like, what should I be doing? Like, what am I preparing in order to start looking at my first investment?
Right. As cliche as it might sound, I want to go back to having that mindset and giving yourself the permission.
I love that.
What I see too, and I'd love to hear your guys' feedback, is a lot of agents have one hat. They have one outfit, which is I am an agent and I can list your
Buy and
home
sell.
or help you sell
Yes.
your home. And that's the box that they put themselves in. And they transact, dozens, if not hundreds of houses per year, and yet they don't and they don't buy one investment for themselves. So going back to, well, why do you want to do this? Because the way that I look at it, I'm not involved in the agency world. I gave up my license a long time ago because that's just not my niche. I don't quite understand if you have to increase your production every single year, and then what? Right? So it can be a great career for you, but what's your retirement plan?
What's the end game?
What's the end game? And so, a lot of it has to be sourced around money. I get that. That's a huge aspect of it. But why are you frustrated enough or motivated enough to say that this is a big, scary thing, maybe, or maybe I just don't understand it. And what do I need to do to make sure I'm going to stay in track when it gets a little hard? So that would be the first thing, because it's not necessarily the easiest thing. So number one would be decide why you're doing this. And number two is decide what gaps do I need to fill in. A lot of agents, you guys have such a leg up on the next person off the street, which is you're familiar with the paperwork, you're used to hustling. There's many things that you have exposure to that the average person that's getting into investing doesn't. You probably just need a little bit of education and confidence to fill those in and hit the ground running.
Right. I mean, a traditional realtor should be able to look at a property and kind of assess, just like they would be coaching a buyer or seller in terms of what they need to do or look for a good value, then they should be doing that for themselves too. And they kind of organically should have some of that know-how.
Yeah, I find that the major thing that they don't know is rehab costs and the breakdown of the numbers when it comes to actually is this a good deal? They might be able to suss out, here's the ARV or here's the full retail value if this was, fixed up in great condition and we threw it on the market, but they can't reverse engineer what needs to happen acquisition wise for them to be able to make a profit. So that's where I see agents get in a lot of trouble when they see but don't educate before they jump in.
Well, and whether they're doing it themselves or not, I mean, I saw it a lot more, I'm going to say, 6-7 years ago, right? And I see less of it now. I think the whole COVID market kind of killed that because, it was
margins.
The prices, the margins, and all that kind of stuff. But for an agent, whether I'm investing or not, it behooves me to know that information because I don't know who my buyer is going to be. Is it going to be Joe and Mary from Connecticut, or is it going to be an investor and they want those options? Hey, for investors, let me tell you the perks on buying this property.
Right.
Here's, what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done, and it's at a good, cost basis for you. So this could work in your plan, or to the normal buyer, So just having that information, whether they're physically buying the property or not, I feel like the agent should expand their knowledge base on every listing they have to have that information.
It's called be curious, right?
Yeah.
We should all be curious. I mean, I hope that we all, proceed through life and business and whatnot where we remain some curiosity because,
Absolutely.
If you've been a realtor for a long time, I hope you're so curious to want to learn those things and see those things. And sometimes you can do that evaluation so fast if you've been doing it for a while and you actually immerse yourself or educate yourself and, stay curious as to what's available out there.
Well, and I assume sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, you must have a lot of friends that are buying a house, let's say. Do they have you come over? I want to see what you think of this house before I buy it.
Well, I'm not an agent.
No,
so,
I know, as a friend.
Sometimes, yeah.
Right. So do you ever find yourself when you're walking around with them, you're pointing out contractor mind problems when they just want to know if you like the way the family room looks? You know what I mean?
Right. I can't not walk in a building and see all the
all the things.
I can turn it off, but yes, I see your
It's tough, right?
Right.
So it's difficult to shut it off.
Right.
You're constantly looking at homes on that scale.
Well, I think to your point, Dave, it's being a more prolific professional, right? All the investors I know that are operating at a high level, all of us have multiple and different things that are within our wheelhouse. And agents, it shouldn't be any different. Now, I do get the idea of specializing. I'm not saying not to specialize, but I do want to go back to the idea of what is your end game with this?
Right.
So you can be the top luxury agent in Scottsdale or Phoenix and do really well on your income, but what does that mean for residual income or retirement as it relates to phasing out of this career? Even if you enjoy doing it and want to do it until you're 100, it still should, I think, give you the income to be able to build a retirement foundation as well. So I think that agents, when they start investing, should also know, why am I doing this? What do I need? What lane do I want to stay in? So if I'm helping my agents buy fix and flips, maybe that's really appealing to me. And so I want to really understand them. So 1 out of every 10 houses that I sell, that an agent might sell this year, gosh, what if I made an offer on that property? And I told the seller, listen, I can put this on the MLS. We can do that too. But what if I purchased it from you? Because you have access to the inventory that some of us don't.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you can just put on your investor hat for, like you said, every single property, look at it through different lenses. How am I showing up? Can I be a resource to these folks? And then also, can I do this? Can I give myself the permission to be the investor? I think it's a really impactful shift that you can have when you show up as a resource and not just an agent, with the clarity of what lane do I want to stay in that I can follow through on.
Yeah. Well, and the why and the end game, right? What are you trying to achieve? And I love this connection to retirement, and you're building the legacy, right? So that instead of living a transactional day to day, what am I building towards to eventually exit out and have, a pina colada kind of life, right? So,
Yeah.
or margaritas in my case. But
Yeah.
and then also too, like, I think that for you too, to be able to see these properties and recognize what is a flip, what is something that is a great investment to hold on to. And I think that's the other piece for people to engage into this arena, is recognizing, like, what's the money? How much cash am I out? And like they start
Right.
thinking about that permission is really correlated into how much money do I need?
Right.
How much money will it cost?
The
Will I be
practicality of it
tied
all.
up?
Right.
I don't have a crystal ball. What if the market crashes? I mean, how many times a day do you hear people say that? Like, what if
Right.
the market? I'm like, oh my gosh! And since the beginning of caves, people have always needed to seek shelter. So we will always have.
You sound like me. I'm like
real
since the
estate
beginning,
market.
Oog and Uck are like remodeling their caves. Yes. Well, and
Someone sold the first cave in
Yes,
Arizona,
yes.
right? Like,
someone repainted the wall and put
Yeah.
like board and batten up there. Yeah. I do want to touch on when you said the pina colada lifestyle. I mean, retirement really isn't about like not doing anything. I
Right.
think it's really about creating the bandwidth to give yourself permission
love
and the peace to say, I want to step into this, and I sure as heck don't want to do this anymore. That was a big thing for me. Like, I don't know how many of you watching are workaholics, but I don't know if I'm a reformed workaholic or if I just, am more relaxed about it now. But there's a part of it where I'm like, man, this brings me a lot of joy, but this part's going to take a little bit to build. And if you're not in hustle phase to where it's like you can't come up for air, either financially or time-wise, to be able to explore that, then that's not financial freedom, no matter how much money you're making. So you have to be clear on, what am I willing to sacrifice? What am I going to do in the meantime to work towards this? And then what does fire mean to me? And it's not an overnight thing, but your trajectory changes when you have that focus of like, I just don't want to have to work this hard, or I want to be able to create this sort of business. So just being able to decide and have choices, I think, is what creates a lot more relaxed and ambitious mindset, which is quite the opposite of what most people think is it's going to be, is like, I'm not going to do anything.
right? Yeah, yeah. That's so true, though. I think that today's retirement is a version of a life that you get to do whatever you want, and you get to play in the arenas that you probably could have done while you're building up to that, and never realize that, wow, I could have just done this the whole time anyway, right?
Right.
But I mean, that's kind of a cool visual to have, right? In terms
Right.
of being able to do things that you want to do. And it still might include a pina colada. I don't know. But
Yes. Yeah. A lot of the students that that are in my flip school, when I do their onboarding and talk to them about what freedom means to them, it really isn't about, I want to get out of my job, or I
Right.
don't want to work anymore. It's really about like, I just want the flexibility to call the shots.
Totally.
Whatever that means to you, and I have students that have very successful careers, and they're like, I don't want to stop working. I just want to do more of this now, and that's what brings me joy. I don't want to chill. This is chill for me. And then I have
Totally.
other students that are like, no, I do want to get out of my job, and I do want more relaxing time. So it really is individualized. So you have to, go grab a coffee and, pencil that out and what that means to you. And it might be really telling to realize, I do want to work. I do want to create.
Right.
That is my giftedness. And what I'm doing now to pay the bills is keeping me out of in my way to
the
do
creative
that.
wheel. Yeah.
Yes.
How do you go about finding your opportunities? I mean, like evolution of how you first sussed out finding stuff that you can invest in yourself. And then today, like, what are you seeing out there from an opportunity standpoint? And, I'm sure you have quite a network these days.
Mm-hmm.
Are you investing outside of Arizona too? Like, kind of give us a little picture of how that looks for you, what you see in the market right now.
Yeah, great question. A lot of people ask, how do you get your deals? Where do you get your deals from? And that, again, is individualized. So I will say, when I got started and I started to branch off on my own, there was still a ton of short sales and pre-foreclosures.
Yeah.
So
we both worked in that arena too.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're all battle.
We all know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
we're all
battle
battle
tested?
worn. Battle. Oh yeah, I like battle tested better.
Yeah.
Yes. Battle tested.
Yeah.
So, I was doing a ton of short sales, and that provided a lot of opportunity to do seller direct. The guys that I had worked with did a ton of seller direct. So I just borrowed from their playbook. I didn't reinvent any wheels. All I did is recreate what they were doing. And so that was it. I did seller direct for quite some time. And then I did what I think a lot of guys do and a lot of people do in this arena, which is bigger is better. And I'm going to start spending a ton of money on marketing. I'm going to get office space. I'm going to get storage space. I'm going to hire an EA and 5 VAs and all of these things because I'm cool and I'm growing my business. And it really is, when you look at your numbers and when you know your numbers as an entrepreneur, which a lot of people want to ignore, it doesn't necessarily mean that your business is going to grow exponentially with every body that you add to the mix. And so I had, again, a friction moment where I was like, this just isn't working. I was producing more when I was really lean versus when I tried to be cool.
We hear this a lot.
And show everyone how
Yep.
cool I was by having this big bad team. And so I really slimmed it down to where am I getting the majority of my deals? What am I good at? And I'm going to follow through on and what works for me, right? And the sort of volume I do or don't need or want. And that really came back down to relationships and social media and really just networking. So I really have almost no budget at this point for getting my deals. It's really about relationships and social media and networking. But that, of course, again, that was an evolution.
Right.
And knowing myself well enough that
The beginning was probably a little grittier than it is today.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
the network, the referral, you've got a referral base, I'm sure,
Yeah.
and people just know, hey, let's give you a call and see if you're interested.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think, if you're listening and you're wondering how do you get deals, the answer is any way that you can, but you have to be consistent, give it at least a few months. I'm sure you work with people all the time that are coming
Yeah.
in to get marketing packages. It's like whether you're marketing to get your next seller or your next flip, it's not overnight.
Right.
And we are looking for needles in the haystack.
For sure.
So it really is a numbers game. And if people are wondering, well, I haven't got my first one, and then you ask them, they've put in 4 offers. They've looked at 5 houses. I'm like, well, hun bun,
Then you go
listen.
you're so cute.
Yeah, you're so, this is adorbs.
Oh,
yes.
you're so pretty.
Yeah. Do that times 1,000 and then
Right.
times,
Yeah. Are you still finding good opportunities in Arizona, Maricopa County, or like in general? Where are you seeing kind of trend right now in terms of on the investment side?
Yeah. So good opportunity is, I'll keep it in the fix and flip lane since
Okay.
that's essentially what we're talking about. I mean, all of us are having to grind a little bit harder to get those. But again, with the relationships, that conversation trickles down to, like, for instance, if I'm working with wholesalers, is you guys need to be buying at this so I can still buy at this and account for all the things, all the headwinds I'm working against when I go to market. So they're having to lower what their cost base, well, they're not purchasing it, but what they're acquiring it at.
Right.
So there's still enough margin and meat on the bones for those of us that are fix and flipping. So really, it hasn't changed as far as the process of it. It's really just like everyone's having to buy a little bit deeper, work a tiny bit harder,
Right.
and be realistic with the sellers
And
as well.
probably be much more precise with timelines for rehabbing.
Of course.
And buying, like, I'm sure holding costs are a big factor when margins get slimmer, right? So, and then I'm sure you do come across opportunity that you don't flip too, right?
course.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
that do you think that's a growing segment of your portfolio, or is it pretty balanced, or?
As far as not flipping,
Yeah, as far as acquiring to hold and acquiring to flip, like.
I look at every deal I look at is always through different lenses.
Okay.
Is this really juicy and has a lot of equity and possibly some cash flow? And then that has also changed where maybe it used to just be long-term holds. Now is it like, can I Airbnb? Can I midterm this? Is this a long-term rental? So having the offshoots in your toolbox to be able to say, can I make music come out of this tuba
Yeah.
in some form or fashion, right?
That's awesome.
And also, recognizing like this isn't a good enough deal. Like when you talk about lowered margins, I don't want a lower margin
Right.
in this market. It
I
has
agree.
to be
it
like
has to still be solid.
it has to be obvious to me. And it's the same thing that I tell my students. I'm like, there's safety nets and there's insulation that you can have. And I'm showing you this at every turn. And so you're going to have to say no to a ton of stuff. But when it makes sense, it makes a lot of sense. And those of us that are still transacting, like we're dialed in. To your point, doing things that I've always been doing and teaching are so foundation, like the fundamentals and the foundational stuff. Most people that were flipping, I won't call them like professional flippers because they just were taking advantage of the market, which is fine. But they don't know what to do with themselves now because they actually have to work at it and work a little bit harder and do the foundational stuff that maybe no one taught them, but is critical. And the difference between like, I'm going to lose a bunch of money on this, or I still have a decent margin. It's going under contract fairly quickly and putting out a good product enough to feel good about continuing to transact in a buyer's market.
Well, in the students you have, if it's someone just getting into it, I would assume that mindset on good margin is different than maybe what your good margin is, right? I mean, at some point you want to get your feet wet and you know, get started in it. So I would assume maybe your expectations are a little bit not as high as someone who's been doing it and seasoned.
Well, that's a great question. So, you know, my benchmark is always around 10%.
Okay.
I'm always aiming for them to get around 10%. Now, we do have the conversation around if you had zero marketing spend into this, say a wholesaler sent it to you and you've spent a goose egg to get that deal, maybe your margin is a little bit lower. And if it's cosmetic and you can get it, you know, quick, you know, on and off the market fairly quickly, maybe there's a little bit of give, right? If it's a big rehab and you have to pay the PETA tax, the pain in the tax, then no, I don't want you to go below that, because then if you do one price reduction, if they ask for what I think the average is $10K and concessions right now, if you have them asking for more things during the inspection period, which buyers agents are...
The buyers are asking for...
ACs.
Windows, everything.
All the things. So I really tell my students, you have to make sure that you buffer for this. And there's things in a buyer's market that you have to adjust for, rather than in the seller's market. There's a couple things that you can, you know, factor in that you might not have to as much as when you're in a buyer's market. But I'm always, to your point, I'm always aiming for around the 10%.
Okay.
And I'm sure that education then obviously comes with an exit strategy, right? You got to talk about how long is something going to be on the market once it's ready to get to market, how long is the rehab, pro forma-ing all of that out, so that that investor, that student, has a really good comfort level with what could potentially be a worst case scenario and a best outcome, right?
Yes. For those of you that are listening, I do have a free calculator on my website if you want to go through the numbers of a fix and flip to know if it's a good to get that 10% margin.
So
just
cool.
go to royceofrealestate.com. My last name, ROYCE, royceofrealestate.com, and you'll see right on my main page, download the free fix and flip calculator. My students love that.
I was going to say, you have an amazing site. I wanted to talk a little bit about your online presence too, because from your social media to your website, really, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, really great. I mean, it's, I'm totally like squirreling here because we were in the middle of something else, but just
all good. Yeah.
We can touch on that too, but
sure.
Yeah. So when you're helping them pro forma that out, they use your calculator, they have a spreadsheet, or you're helping them kind of discover really when they can expect to have an end game on a project they might be engaging on.
The whole point of Flip School was I had people, to your point too of the social media, kept reaching out because I was sharing my journey really with as much as I'm saying, have an end in mind and know what you're doing. I'm like, I'm just out here sweating and sharing.
Yeah, and I love it.
That's what I did for years and years and years, was just sweating and sharing, nothing to sell, no end game other than like share my journey with everyone. And by virtue of that, I kept having people reach out like, hey, how do I do this? How can you sit down with me and do that? I'm like, I can't. I am eyelashes deep in this. Like, I cannot sit down and teach you individually. But I ended up putting Flip School together with the idea of, listen, whether you're in Alabama or Arizona, if I pin dropped you somewhere, you could take the fundamentals from A to Z and apply them and learn how to fix and flip safely and do it in any market. Buyer's market, seller's market, whatever. And I tell my students now, I'm like, I think it's actually really healthy that you're learning to do it in a little bit of a slower market where you're forced to follow the fundamentals. So that way, as you get some repetition, it's going to seem like old hat and you're going to be more competitive and you're going to have those relationships. So if or when things start to pick up again, you just pick up the pace a little bit. But it was really important to me to deliver it in such a way that at the end of this, they're like, I feel 110% more confident, and really replace that fear that I used to have. And I waited so many years to start working on my own because I just couldn't put the pieces together. And I honestly did not feel confident enough to give myself permission earlier. So that was my thing, is I want them to feel educated, and I think I'm a good coach, but I also want them to just feel really confident to go out and conquer.
Well, talk a little bit how does your Flip School work? Like, how does a student get involved? What does that timeline look like? Is it one-on-one? Is it group session? Like, walk us through that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So it's 3 months, and my whole goal is to get you from, it's 12 weeks, to get you from mostly intimidated, which mostly my students are, to confident within 90 days. And so that includes the education portion, which I make you do a quiz and an assignment. This is not for people.
I love it.
Yeah. Coach Tracy, I'm tough, man. Did I mention I was Italian?
I was going to say, there's the Italian.
Yeah. Pasta and work.
She's a mobster. I love it.
I'm a real estate gangster. So It forces you to do the uncomfortable work as if you already have something under contract, right? And then we show up to class. There's a coaching class every Friday where we talk about that assignment. And so you're doing this with the training wheels on with your Flip School community friends. And then every Tuesday, we also have class calls where if you have deals, marketing, people that are houses that are already under contract, rehabs that you're working on, we do real world class work. So it's 3 months of that, and
when's the next session start?
August 1st.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, this is
Awesome.
great timing.
Great
then.
timing.
Perfect timing.
Yeah,
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
Love it. That is awesome. And then, how many? Usually is it a few people? Is it a dozen people? Do you get people from kind of all over?
I do get people from all over. It's more, I do say I have more students from Arizona just by virtue of me being here and having wonderful
Absolutely.
guests or you hosts like you to have me be a guest on your podcast. But there are students from all over. It's really supposed to be nationwide. And I like to keep things a little bit more intimate. So it's anywhere from 5 to 10 students.
I
that
love
go through
that.
class.
Perfect.
Yep.
I feel like that's the sweet spot. Whenever you do anything, that 5 to 10 mark, you can have like real connection with each individual. There's a little bit of a feeling of safety for the attendees. Like, it's I feel more confident to speak up in around 5 or 10 people than if there was 1,000 people on a webinar.
And that's what I've heard from a lot of students is they're like, listen, I paid more to get less and I'm one of 1,000 and I can't even get a word in. And I feel like they just told me to sit down in front of a screen and watch a bunch of videos. And I just, I just feel like that's a huge disservice. I'm not here to be by someone's side and tell them everything to do on every flip. I'm here to teach them so they can fish for themselves and say like, this was really worth it, and tell their friends about it and create that network. Again, I don't want to spend a ton on marketing. I rather just put out a good product and have those referrals come in.
Well,
So
and after the 12-week course goes on, I mean, how often are you receiving calls still? Hey, can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
I ran into this scenario. What do you think of this?
Yeah. So there are a lot of students that stay in the program for month-to-month membership. It's just something that they feel like, a lot of the students end up getting their first deal. My ideal would be within the time that they're in Flip School, but oftentimes it's within that 6 months.
Yep.
So if you're thinking, hey, I'm been dabbling, I've been watching the videos and going to the meetups, but I don't know how to dive in. What's the next step? If you think that you are ready to get a flip in the next 6 months, then it's time for Flip School.
That's cool. Do you think that for people's first investment that it's a good idea to do it with friends or not? I mean, I've heard from people that are like, to get their feet wet, they're like, me and my bestie went in on something. And is that something you see very often, or is that something you would recommend to do or not do?
I just would be very clear and very careful on what is the division of labor. Like, we can like each other, we can love each other, we can kiki it up all the time, we can grab coffee or cappuccinos or or drinks, but what does that really mean when it comes to business? Because it's all fun and games until there's like $500,000 on the line.
Yep.
Right? Like the median home price, let's just say if you're going to go to market at $450,000. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're coming up with to be able to put the down payment, do the rehab, holding costs, all the fun things. It's not so cute when no one's leading the herd, the contractors aren't showing up, you're missing a hard money payment, no one knows what to do with the design, it's all over the place. Right. So whether it's your friend or family member or someone that you met at a
just
meetup,
somebody to partner with,
I really do encourage people not to partner up because they're nervous. And I see people want to do that. Like, if we cling together, like, you'll just make me feel better about it. Rather than I am teaming with this person because they're great at this and I'm great at this, and together.
Division of labor.
So
the division of labor.
I love that because I know people who do it and have had both outcomes. It's gone great or it's gone horribly bad. And so I was just curious for your perspective because I love this division of labor thought practice, right? Because a lot of these folks have gone into business with people they thought were going to be great. Obviously, nobody says, oh, let's get together and do a property together because I think it might suck. But when it does go down the other road, I think a lot of times they haven't done that due diligence to talk about that division of labor and kind of talk about where do we complement each other with our skill set, and how do we make sure that we can work together and still remain in good lanes.
And you're entitled, so you guys will appreciate this, is everything in writing.
Everything in writing.
There's no fist bump. Okay, cool. A text message like we got this, bro, sort of contract. Again, when there's money on the line and a lot of decisions, and fix and flip is the most active type of investing that you can do. Right. This isn't a passive type of vehicle. So when there's that much decisions and urgency on the line, it can go very quickly in multiple and different directions. But again, it's having that clarity and putting it in writing and understand your division of labor. But I'm not against partners. I'm all about the prenup.
Right.
I'm all about
it.
I'm all about the clarity and the
prenup.
division
I
of
love it.
labor.
Well, and the funny thing you say, it's the most, fix and flip is, the easiest way to invest out there and make some money. But it's also, for some people, requires the least amount of qualifications for someone to say I'm an investor. You know what I mean? So I would assume your reputation, the amount of flips you've done, your GC status, all that. When you're selling a home, I assume you're using that to say, look, I'm not just, Jenny on the block that just flipped a house. You know what I mean? Real quick, my first one. Good luck. Here's the keys.
Right.
What do you think is the most important? Like, I'm starting today. I'm going to get involved. I've got some cash ready to go. Who are the most important people to have on my team roster? Like, what are the practitioners that I need to have on speed dial?
Right. I think it really starts with
Hard
having
money. I mean, GC.
Yep. All the things really. So essentially, I mean, there's a dozen people that are going to help this product be successful.
See, I think that's so important for people to know. Like, we're talking about having a dozen people that you can have on speed dial.
Right. So, I mean, a big thing is making sure that you bought it right. So in as much as like, hey, what can I do to make sure that this is done correctly? Well, it's like, if you have bought this incorrectly, everyone can do an amazing job. That does not mean it's going to be profitable. Yeah. Right. And that's my number one thing. Of course, and I've loved seeing this, how much more design and thoughtfulness is being put into fix and flips. Like when I got started, it was maroon and beige.
It was like coat of paint and some carpet if you're lucky.
I'm still waiting for Bisque to come back.
It's probably already in the mix.
It's on its way.
Wait for it. So, people really want to focus on that because of the gram and social media, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But let's table that just for a second to say, did I buy this correctly? And if I buffer in the things, because there's a lot of bear traps that come with fixing and flipping. So even if a couple bear traps go off, am I still going to be safe? And by safe, I mean profitable, right? So that would be the number one thing as on speed dial is a wholesaler or an agent that sends you a deal or wherever you're getting your deals from, that you are buying it correctly from that person and building a relationship that you're like, this is a good deal. Let's do more of these. Another one would be your general contractor. I mean, people tell you these horror stories, and I'm not trying to shift the blame, but I think it's because they don't know how to vet for a contractor.
Right.
And so they just pick up the phone and call someone. They're not decisive. They're doing a ton of change orders. They're delaying things for the contractors, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this contractor was horrible. It's like, were they, or did you not find the right person and guide and lead the team in such a way that it could have been either avoided or done better?
Did they have the right expectations? They may not. They may think, well, I should be able to call the contractor and change the color 15 times in a week. Well, that tends to make the situation tough on the contractor. And then you're right. They end up blaming the contractor.
Right.
Now I delayed your job by 3 weeks. Now you got to wait for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say like it's their fault or all contractors are good. I'm not dancing around the fact that there's a lot of, shifty contractors.
Right.
But again, it's like, had you had that education and the confidence to say like, this is the way it needs to be done, I want to pair with the right person and lead the pack and let them do what they're an expert in, then things can go as smoothly as they possibly can when it comes to humans and construction, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a big thing. And then working with, if you yourself are not an agent, if you yourself are not an agent or not experienced enough to know my go-to-market price in this sort of market,
right?
Not what I hope it sells for, or
not
what
compared to last year, not compared to last month.
That part, or skipping out on staging or professional photography. What I see people want to do at times is skip the things, like the small things. If you just spent like 60, 70, 80 grand on your rehab, and yet you don't want to spend $2,000 on staging.
Yeah.
Like you were doing yourself a major disservice.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Or letting the agent take
it all the time.
Right. Or let the agent take the selfie, bathroom photo for you. And
No, it's over here. So only the phone shows.
Hello. Like, bro, you really couldn't spend $200
right
after you spent, $70,000 on a rehab. So even just little things like that, like you have to
don't scrimp. Like, what's the word? Scrimp.
Scrimp.
Right? Yeah.
And
I'm like, did I say that right?
You're paying for a premium. You're paying for a premium if the GC knows what they're doing and can get you through the process faster, right? You're paying for a premium to have a really great agent. You're paying for a premium to have staging. You're paying for a premium to have professional photos, but all of that encapsulated should be part of your budget. And it's just the way that the business is. It's not like, Bernie, I'm going to save $200 if I don't get good pictures.
Yeah.
That is literally one of the number one things that is pushing people to get excited to get over to your property. So I say this because it really is a team effort. And if you slow down just a little bit to get these people lined up and on your team and think like a business owner,
right? Not
like I'm going to save $200 or I'm going to save $1,000 by doing this. Think like a business owner from your first one. I promise you that it will go better, and
every iteration is going to get smoother, faster, stronger, more like you just have to stay in that motion.
Precisely.
Yeah. Well, I love that because I'm always thinking about people that are ready, and a lot of times ready for them means I've got some cash. And that's why I was very purposeful in saying, I got some money. What do I do? Like, instead of going out there and finding a property, maybe line up your team first, right?
Yes.
Know who you're going to call when you need some things done, because for however long you hold that property, it costs you money.
And so what we do in Flip School is we have you go through the motions as if you already have something under contract. I don't want you closing on, the title closes, the deed is recorded, and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I don't even have demo lined up.
Right.
And I don't know what I'm going to do. And this is all very exciting. And then all of a sudden you're burning daylight.
Yep.
So it seems a little cart and horse, but I'd much rather you pick up the phone and start making those calls to say like, hey, I'm out actively looking. I almost got something under contract last week. Here's an example of this. Can we just walk through this and do a test run?
Yeah.
I do the same thing with private money lenders too, So there's no harm in picking up the phone and just saying, hey, I've got this activity going. Can we meet up? Can we talk about this? Can we start to put this in motion? So really when it comes to
kind of preemptive,
you're just plugging and playing once you get the address.
Yeah. That's cool. You have, I love your approach. You're very approachable. I love your desire to like share with everybody. And, I think I love how you position things as an evolution, right? This evolution of sorts, because it is doable and it's attainable. And I think it's so important. Like if you work in this real estate space, that we should be taking advantage of it for ourselves just as much as we're serving the community that we, the traditional community.
Right.
But I mean, you really are a superstar. I mean, what's next for you? Like, what do you have on the horizon? What are you working towards? When's your book coming out? Like,
I appreciate.
Are you going to be on Oprah someday?
Like, do you do PR because you're hired? It's been a lot of fun just being able to create and realizing what I'm great at, and the million other things that I'm like, I suck at this, so I'm not going to do this.
I feel like HGTV's in your future. Is there a book coming? When am I going to see you on TV?
You're so encouraging. Thank you. So there's a couple things that I can't talk about quite yet, but that are
this is the good stuff.
Yeah, but
we know how to get in there. I know. I mean, I know you're Italian and all, but
but really, it's a growing Flip School, continuing to do what I'm doing, and I feel like there's just iterations and things that blossom off of that. With other investors, a lot of us just have multiple and different income streams and things that we create as verticals within our business. I don't know, one of the questions I think that we had touched on earlier was, where are people getting deals and what are they doing and what's going on in the Phoenix market? I don't know any investor that's working at a high level that doesn't have multiple and different things going on. So I do appreciate the recognition, but I feel like if you are an entrepreneur, when the market shifts or something, changes, which your business could be going fantastic and all of a sudden this changes or the market changes, you have to retool and think creatively and think adaptively.
Right.
Like none of us are successful in a vacuum. So there's that flexibility and that resourcefulness that I see, which is really excelling, and the investors that are doing really well are just adapting a lot, whether that be different markets, whether that be leaning into different verticals in their businesses, listening to what people want and providing that if that's still in their wheelhouse. And honestly, just being a resource to people that might have a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like like when you're fearful and you just freeze up, like the freeze response. Are you seeing that with agents?
I think what we're seeing it everything. I mean, we see hundreds of agents every month, right? So you see them all in these different iterations of dialed in. I feel like, 22 years in this business, I'm seeing everything. Like usually there's seasons where it's all this or all that, but right now from an agent practitioner, and
the ups, the downs,
we're seeing the ups and the
middle,
downs. Like today, I might talk to somebody who's killing it, and then I'm talking to 30 minutes later, someone's like, I'm really struggling. What
am I supposed to do?
What do you think the biggest difference is?
I think the biggest difference, I think there's a few factors. Number one, it's the work ethic of the agent, the practitioner, right? I'll use the word agent loosely, but what are they trying to accomplish? And are they just starting now, or have they been working on their business since it's been their business, right? And I'm a big believer of investment. You have to invest in your business. You have to invest strategically, not do things just for the sake of doing them.
Right.
And then this is a market that you have to pivot through. Every single market that we're in my experience has been in the state of Arizona, but in the Maricopa County, like, you're always pivoting. If you're not, tomorrow's market, tomorrow's business is happening right now, because we said this was going to be happening when, right? So the future is right now, and you should always be prepared to kind of pivot through that. And so, you know, there's a lot going on, I think, for a lot of the agents out there. And I think it's really, really hard because days on market have extended. It's more of a buyer's market. More in this moment in time, we're seeing a lot more empowerment on the buy side. And at the end of the day, I think the agents that are doing really, really well are immersed into the market. They're actually practitioners for the service of the community that they're trying to help, as opposed to trying to get a deal, right? So, and you do the same thing. Even if you're on the investment side, you're looking for a strategic opportunity that's going to benefit, you know, whether you're looking to build legacy or whether you're looking to do a flip, whatever that is that you're trying to end game with, you're looking at it from a strategic lens, as opposed to I'm a busy lens, right? Or lack of busy. I mean, there's some agents that just haven't done anything, and all of a sudden they're kind of freaking out, and they're like, I need to get on it. I'm like, well, you should have been on it last year.
Well, even beyond last year, I mean, I know we're 4.5 years out of COVID. How many agents jumped in during COVID? Right? And how many didn't have to know their business then? I mean, let's be honest, right? It was simpler times then. Put a sign in the yard, put it up, and
Fog a mirror,
you're
do a
fending
deal.
people off.
Yeah.
Now, okay, now what do I do?
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay, and like Bernie said, the past 3 years, they haven't been building that business. So it's now come to a head, and maybe they've joined a team where they don't have to rely on any of that either because it's all provided, and now they want to be on their own.
Yeah.
So
Or
I'm
the
seeing
opposite.
it all.
Or the opposite. They've been killing it because of all the work that they've put into their business.
That part.
So, I mean, I talked to a lot of really successful agents, and they're like, you know what? When things got tough last year, I tripled down on my business.
There you go.
I didn't double down. I tripled down.
Right.
I invested even more. I knew that in January, regardless of the market, we always see the highest number of listings come to market in January. Well, it's not because somebody door knocked in January.
Right.
Right.
It's because they've been, you know, they're tripled down on their
Paying
business.
attention to their business. I mean, we could have interviewed you. I feel like that's the sound clip for this for this platform. Is if you're an agent listening to this and freaking out, it's amazing how opportunity is just covered up by, you know, a lot of work. And you know, whether it's agents or flippers, same thing. In 2022, you know, we saw the most amount of flips, and all of a sudden, when the Fed changed the rate, it was just like things came to a screeching halt within 2 weeks.
Totally.
I remember it, you know, and it's one of those things to where the fundamentals, again, that I teach and practice myself and share are the same things I've been doing since I got started, you know, and it's amazing how people are proselytizing on socials to say, have you guys used real staging in your flips? Like, did you know that that's and I'm like, is this a new, are we really just now understanding that that's something that we should be doing? Similarly, how many cold calls have you made or whatever your jam is when it comes to marketing? So if your business isn't what you thought it would be, I think that sometimes as an entrepreneur, no matter what niche that you're in, real estate, you know, sandwiches, whatever, you know, getting your sandwich store started, you underestimate how many reps and time and money it's actually going to take to probably get you to the level that you want to do. And it's noisy now. It's really noisy now. There's a lot of
good way to put it.
We're in an amazing market, that meaning for jobs, for growth. There's a lot of advantages here to practicing real estate here in Phoenix. In the same thread, we're also very competitive. So if you're not doing it, someone else is going to eat your lunch. If that person, listen, as an agent, if that person is ready to sell, this guy just got there faster. This gal just hustled a little bit harder.
They wanted it more.
Yep. So if you're wondering what to do, it's like, get the hell up and get to work.
I love it.
And I love how you put it. You got to triple down. And that might not be forever. And it might not actually come out in the way that you expected it to.
Absolutely.
But by virtue of putting it out there and showing up and being loud and being consistent and just telling people over and over and over and over again, this is what I do, and showing them what you do, eventually those synapses start to connect and come back to you. But you have to put in that repetition to be able to, I think, prove to the universe or the business ecosphere, I'm serious.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like repetition is retention. So the more you practice it, the more that it's a numbers game, right? And it's also the power of your efforts bring you that reciprocated energy too. And finding the right people to do your networking with. I mean, you have to talk to people in this business. You have to. That's like everybody that we get to, connect with. When we talk to them about how they've gotten into their business, networking is a huge part of it. Like you have to talk to people. You have got to connect with people. And I think you have to show up with authenticity. I think that today we know when people are not, right? You can smell that out. You can suss that out when somebody's not authentically operating in their space, or they have, maybe not the purest of motivations, right? Another job, another just doing whatever it takes. But I think that your impact from a coaching standpoint, and it's so cool because we always ask people like, where they stand on mindset and coaching. And it's like, we don't even have to ask you that question today because I feel like it just came about so organically with everything you've shared. Probably one of my big, I think one of my biggest.
Because you're Italian.
Yeah, I was just going to say, have I reminded you?
Yeah, but one of my biggest, I love what you said about give yourself permission. I think that's so powerful because whatever you're doing right now, in whatever space you're operating in, whether it's at a high level of success or you're struggling, you're somewhere in the middle, give yourself permission.
Right.
I freaking love that. And by the way, permission could be give yourself permission to kill it, or give yourself permission to know that I think I'm going to try this and I'm pretty sure it's not going to go as good as I hope it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like just give yourself permission. Right. What does FAIL stand for? First attempt in learning, right? So
right, or even give yourself permission to say like I'm going to look a little goofy doing this.
That's right.
Someone might make fun of me on socials, or I feel really awkward in front of the camera, but it's not until you get those reps in to say like, oh, okay, I didn't know this because I hadn't done it 12 different ways to be able to get to this. Right. And someone said, hey, why don't you try this?
Yes.
If I hadn't done it those 12 or 50 or 100 ways before that, to have that piece of information provided to me, I wouldn't have known that. So I think the permission part is like also the time's going to go by whether you do that thing or not. So if you keep waiting, I don't know about you guys. I feel like, especially this year, things are just flying by.
So bananas,
and there is a sense of urgency that it's just like, if you're waiting, not only is someone else going to do that thing, but then also like you're leaving it on the table. Like you could have had that last 3 months of foundation for yourself to have created it, even if it's step by step and a little bit slower than you would have preferred, or it's not in the way, or someone makes fun of you on Facebook. It's being able to step into the courage of your future self.
That's awesome.
And say, I want this enough for myself that I'm giving myself the permission to take that leap of faith and invest in me.
I love that. I mean, very cool. And also just the ability to have your own business, right?
Yes.
Like the freedom in that. Yeah. Wow. This has been amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've been so outstanding with your share. It's just been, I love it. I feel like, okay, what do I get to do? I'm ready to roll.
No, I appreciate that.
What can we do to best support you?
Wow, great question. This platform has been amazing. I think that just being in your network and becoming friends and
thank you.
Being around each other has been incredible.
Let's keep the flow going.
Yeah.
For sure. And then to contact you, Royce of Real Estate on Instagram and your website.
I'm all the places online where you guys are. The handle is Royce, Royce, my last name Royce, of Real Estate, and website, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the things.
All the things.
Yep.
Love it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we need to have like a part 2, a part 3, a part 4.
Tracy, seriously, thank you so much.
It's been my honor. I really enjoyed our conversation.
It's been awesome to hear just
Thank you.
how long you've been doing it and how successful you are. So
thank you.
So great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy Royce of Real Estate. You guys make sure to tune in for this episode. It was absolutely amazing. Thanks so much. See you soon. Cheers.
Bye.